Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in New York City today in preparation for an address he will deliver at the United Nations tomorrow. Now, despite intense pressure from the Biden-Harris administration and other nations for Israel to submit to a ceasefire with Hezbollah on its northern front, Prime Minister Netanyahu has instructed his military to keep fighting with full force. Hezbollah began launching airstrikes at northern Israel shortly after Hamas's October 7th attack last year. Firing over 10,000 projectiles into the country, driving thousands of Israelis from their homes. Now, why is this international effort only happening now? Why are they calling for a ceasefire now that Israel is fighting back? Joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Eric Bordenkircher. He is a research fellow at UCLA, their Center for Middle East Development. He publishes extensively on Middle East politics and U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. Eric, welcome back to Washington Watch.
My pleasure.
Now, you have lived, actually, in Lebanon. Your doctoral dissertation has the subtitle, Deciphering Lebanon's Political Chessboard. Now, based on this background, tell us your assessment of this most recent situation and where it's headed.
Well, the situation is a product of a weak or almost non-existent Lebanese state. Hezbollah operates as a state within the Lebanese state and basically does what it wants. So this conflict that they started on October 8th, when they decided to act in solidarity with the Hamas, was done without the green light or even conferring with the Lebanese. So you have a organization, you have a militia terrorist group that operates according to its wishes and desires. And now, go ahead.
So Dr. Bordenkircher, the Hezbollah, no official connection with the Lebanese government. They're kind of basically a parasite on the country, if you will.
I wouldn't say no official connection. You have members of the Hezbollah in the government, parliament, and then also elements within the government. Although the government currently is illegitimate, it's a caretaker government. The Lebanese had elections, but they haven't been able to form this recent manifestation of the government. So they're not entirely distinct from the Lebanese state, and they have this ability to often block developments, political developments, but their militia, which is distinct from the political party, operates independently of the Lebanese state.
So why now do we see the Biden administration, this international effort to step forward saying, hey, wait a minute, we need a ceasefire, when this has actually been going on for nearly a year, where Hezbollah has been firing missiles and rockets into northern Israel? Why now?
Well, the Biden administration has been conducting shuttle diplomacy since October, November of last year, but it has been unsuccessful. It's been unsuccessful because one of the combatants in this conflict is a non-state actor, and you're not going to interact, you're not going to negotiate with them, and the Lebanese state does not have the ability to kind of enforce any settlement or any agreement. Now, kind of when, Hezbollah's feet are kind of put to the fire here, then the situation has somewhat changed, the situation has intensified, and I think it's a lot to do with this Biden diplomatic initiative, or I should say this Biden foreign policy initiative of kind of defending and then diplomacy. So they give Israel this opportunity to defend itself, but then they expect, a diplomatic resolution. There's no resolution with groups like this. Hezbollah doesn't want to coexist with an Israeli state. It's not looking to compromise, or at least not looking to compromise in the long term. And what these attempts at negotiations and settlements have been is basically appeasement, just very temporary. So, for example, 2 years ago, there was a heightened tension along the Lebanese-Israeli border in regards to dispute over the maritime boundary and the gas fields in the Mediterranean. And Hezbollah threatened to provoke a war, attack Israeli infrastructure, and the Biden administration kind of rushed in and tried to resolve the discrepancy or tensions, and they made a settlement. But the settlement has lasted, a year or two, and we're back to kind of square one here, where Hezbollah is deciding to act in its own interests.
So is Israel on the path to actually preserve peace and tranquility for the region by the elimination of Hamas's leadership and their capacity?
I mean, it's a path to peace that's going to require, I think, a great deal of destruction and fighting, at least in the short term. Having spent time in Lebanon, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends are not fans of the organization, so they will be happy to see this organization go. Whether that's the case and how that's going to happen, I think, is kind of the million-dollar question, or the very challenging policy or agenda to pursue there.
Do you see another way? Do you see another way to have a managed peace in that region?
Unless the Lebanese step up, no. I think the Israelis have to take matters into their own hands here and degrade the organization considerably in order to be able to have a semblance of security, of peace along their northern border. But the Lebanese state is incapable of enforcing any agreement. So we could have a ceasefire here, and then 3 months, 6 months from now, the problem will spring back up. The one thing I think often gets overlooked in this recent developments is that Hezbollah is trying to kind of be able to leverage the Palestinian conflict here. And if Israel doesn't keep these two conflicts, the conflict in Gaza and the conflict in Lebanon, separate, then Hezbollah going forward will have this ability to kind of attack Israel when they feel that the Israelis are not dealing with the Palestinians properly.
The United States is actually helping try to combine those two, are they not?
Yes, I think this is the wrong policy here. I think the Biden administration should allow the Israelis to do what they're doing here for the moment.
All right, Dr. Eric Bordenkircher, I want to thank you for joining us. Always appreciate your insights, and I'm sure, given where we are on this issue, we're going to be talking about it a lot more in the days ahead.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.